One of my close friends, I was talking to him recently, and he works some job in finance. To say he hates it is the understatement of the century. So he basically goes through the motions on a daily basis and just clocks in and clocks out and then sprints to do the things that he enjoys. He's also got a kid who's very young. He's, raising the kid. And he was comparing himself to me, and I would say that what I do for a living, the thing that's my job, is something that I would do even if I wasn't getting paid for it. It's, I wake up in the morning and I do the thing that I want to do, and it just so happens that that's also the thing that pays the bills. So my question is it even possible to get society to a point where we don't have this dichotomy between work time and leisure time, and everybody sort of feels like how I would describe I feel, or is that something that's so utopian and so far above and beyond what you think our capabilities are?
Yeah, I don't think it's utopian at all. I think it's something realistic, and I think it's something that we should absolutely aim for. Cultural change is a slow process. I mean, it happens generationally. And, I'm not expecting people like my parents, or actually probably even many of the guys I was at school with, to change their views wholeheartedly. They just don't. As we get older, we get more set in our ways and stubborn about things. But I certainly think that there is already a sea change of people actually seeking more to, do the work they love, rather than try and persuade themselves to learn to love the only work that they can find. And I think it is partially because we are in this position where we do have the wealth and resources to be able to do this. We have the means, we have the power, we have the capacity to do it. And it really is about just overcoming these blocks. And I think it's a degree of bravery is always required. People will often avoid making difficult changes, even when they know it's the right thing to do. And I'm speaking as an ex-smoker. The amount of excuses. I know it's putting me in my bloody grave, but I also know the amount of excuses that I persuade myself just to not break a simple set of habits and norms, which I know I can break over a short amount of time. You develop blocks, and I think there's a huge amount of natural resistance to things, and we've got to play out with that and play with time. And this is why these kind of big changes tend to only happen after crisis events. So if you think about, for example, in Western Europe, it really took 2 world wars before you had the real political will and engagement. It was out of the carnage and the ruins and the smoke that suddenly in Britain we got our NHS and we got the welfare state. And we got this idea, this set of principles that actually we have the means to be able to look after one another better. And I hope really that this crisis is one of the things, our pandemic now is one of the things that pushes us towards that realization. And I think it's about making gentle nudges and pushing things just over the edge. But I don't think it's unrealistic at all. And in fact, I think it's essential because, we cannot keep on with this sort of insane production and consumption loop that we're in, because quite simply, our climate tells us we can't do that. The risks are too high. We're really now at the point where our productivity at all cost mindset risks cannibalizing the very wonders that, 10,000 years of hard work, misery and chaos and war have won us. And this is, again, where I keep saying, look, hunter-gatherers managed to do this. We can certainly engage with that change in mindset, and we have to. I mean, we may talk about it as utopian, but the alternative is that we're kind of screwed.
Yeah. First of all, we got the news a few days ago that Joe Biden is supporting the TRIPS waiver. Now, the TRIPS waiver, for those of you who don't know, the idea behind that is you lift the patent protections for Big Pharma when it comes to the COVID vaccine. So they would no longer block the sale of generic versions of the vaccine. That's the TRIPS waiver. Now, having said that, this is a little bit more complicated because that's not really what the Biden administration said. The Biden administration said they're going to support a waiver, not the actual TRIPS waiver from it was South Africa and India. They were the ones who came up with it originally. He's not saying we're going to support that. What they're saying is, okay, we're going to go talk to the World Trade Organization and we're going to involve ourselves in the negotiations. So in other words, what that means is, yes, they're going to try to come to some sort of a deal where more vaccines will get more arms. But, my speculation was that I think maybe they're going to try to get Pfizer and Moderna and whoever to get their cut. They might want to give them a percentage of it. You had a theory as well. What was your theory?
I don't know.
You don't remember your theory?
No.
You told me your theory earlier.
Well, here's a couple of the barriers.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first of all, I don't want to be total cynic here. I think the fact that they even said this is significant, and it's a significant break from what the Trump administration did, the Bush administration did, the Clinton administration did. So even just saying the words we're going to support lifting the patent protection is a huge deal in and of itself. And that was reflected in the fact that the stocks for Pfizer and Moderna
plummeted.
Absolutely.
Which is how you know something's real here. There's something that's real. Even if it's a little, it's real.
Clearly, investors, these companies are freaking out. They're putting out these press releases that are just like,
Joe
horrible.
Biden's a bitch. We don't even like that guy. Fuck him. That's basically what they're doing.
That's basically what it is. My favorite is all of the healthcare execs who have come out and been like, well, we're not even going to work with you on the next vaccine. Which is like, Pfizer is making hundreds of millions of dollars off of this one vaccine. Like, give me a fucking break.
$3.5 billion in 3 months they made off the vaccine.
Yeah, so that's their revenue. That's like, I think I saw the stat, that's like making up a quarter of their revenue right now. Okay, so they've made plenty of money, trust me.
And taxpayers created the fucking vaccines.
Taxpayers created the mRNA technology.
Yes, they didn't do it.
Freaked down about. So I just want to say, to start with, I think Biden gets a lot of credit for, he had a lot of pressure from within his own administration, from Bill Gates, who's radically on the wild side of this, on the wrong side of this.
On the wrong side, yeah.
And the wild side, on the wrong side of this. From Pharma has hired every lobbyist that they possibly can get their hands on. They're funneling cash into people like Senator Menendez and others of their allies in Congress, trying to get them to push back. Full court press to keep even this moment from happening. So I want to say that first. But this is not where the story ends.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things here. So first of all, because we're talking about a World Trade Organization proposal, it has to be passed unanimously. It wasn't just the U.S. that was standing in the way. It was also the EU, Canada, and Japan as well, I believe.
But to be fair, there are puppets usually.
So that's the question.
Right.
Does the Biden administration just say, like, well, we're cool with the patent protection waiver, but unfortunately, these countries are staying our way, so, oh, well, too bad, let's come up with a compromise position. And, in fact, Germany has already come out and said that they oppose what the Biden administration is doing
The tweet was deleted. Hold on.
Okay.
No, I want to make sure that no, it is true.
Okay.
Germany's Angela Merkel opposes the waiver of vaccine intellectual property protections at the WTO.
So, look, that's number one. Is the Biden administration actually going to put pressure to bear on countries in the EU and Canada around the world who are the rich world who are standing in the opposition of this? That's number one. Number two, in addition to lifting the patent protection, you have to also force these companies to share their technological know-how so that manufacturers around the world can ramp up and actually know how to create these vaccines. So that's the other stumbling block here ultimately.
So that I'm actually not sure about, because there may be a lot of outlets that already know how to do it, and they're just being held back by the threat of the lawsuit. See, there's a lot of things. It's tough to separate the reality from the non-reality, because there's so many pharma talking points out there that are just complete and utter bullshit, that they're just trying desperately to come up with anything to sound plausible to try to push back against this. So, for example, the Dr. Fauci thing. I don't know if you saw this.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci was like, oh, my only concern is getting shots in arms as fast as possible. And I don't know, maybe this doesn't have that effect if you get rid of the patent protections. And it may take as long as 18 months for, this to actually have the impact and have the effect. Everything I've read indicates that is definitely not true. So in other words, Dr. Fauci was either talking to some pharmaceutical lobbyist who presented himself as some sort of expert, and that guy convinced him that that's the case.
Yeah.
So he's either a dupe or he's lying on behalf of pharma.
So here's what I would say based on the reading and the research and the experts that I believe who I've been. So first of all, the issue of technological know-how is real. Like, it's complex to make these vaccines, and you would need to share some of the information about exactly. It's not good enough just to have, like, here are the ingredients. You need a little bit of information about technologically how it's made. So that's accurate. The piece that's not accurate is Bill Gates, for example, came out and was like, they wouldn't even be able to do it. And the Wall Street Journal directly made the case that basically, like, oh, well, these manufacturers around the world, they just couldn't figure out how to do it.
Bill Gates said,
the piece that's total bullshit.
Gates said anybody who can produce these vaccines is already making them. That is 100% false.
Completely a lie.
What's happening is there's people who can make the vaccine, but they're afraid of lawsuits from pharma because they have patent protection. Yes. They have the intellectual property rights. And if they go to make the vaccine, a generic version of it, they'll get the shit suit out of them.
Right. And so... And that's not just like you and I saying. The AP identified factories around the world that were prepared to make hundreds of millions of doses if they just had
the green light.
The green light and the technological know-how. Okay, so that's just completely fabricated. But so the question is this just the real core question? Is this the Biden administration under pressure scoring PR points? Or are they actually going to do what it takes to have this be meaningful? That means putting pressure on our allies to get in the right place. That means negotiating good faith at the World Trade Organization, having an actual patent protection lift that is meaningful. And that means pushing these companies to share the technological know-how so that the factories around the world can get up and running as quickly as possible.
Here's the problem. He ain't jumping through any fucking hurdles. He ain't going to jump through any fucking hurdles. He ain't going to do any extra work on this shit. Unfortunately, here's the reality. How many times have we seen similar things to this in terms of headlines? Joe Biden to crack down on private prisons.
Yeah.
You read the specifics. It's like only the Department of Homeland Security private prisons. There are very few of those.
It applied to like literally 5 prisons.
60% of the ICE prisons are private prisons. None of those are being touched.
Right.
What about the Buy America Executive Order? Joe Biden to sign Buy America Executive Order. You read the specifics. Totally toothless.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen this play out? We've seen it with student loan debt elimination. I remember reading the headlines, Joe Biden to eliminate student loan debt. You read the specifics, it's like a couple $2 billion out of $1.6 trillion.
Right.
It's not even 1% of the student loan debt. And the sycophantic media goes out there.
They don't even ask questions.
They don't ask questions. They just run the positive headlines. He gets the positive press, and then we move on. Nothing to see here, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. Joe Biden's great, nothing to see here. I'm afraid a similar thing is happening here. Now, listen, I do think he's looking for a middle ground. I think he's looking for something where he could say, yes, create the vaccines, create the generic vaccines. We're going to lift the patent protections. But like I said, Big Pharma basically runs Washington. Somebody wants a fucking cut. That's what I think it is. Yeah. Now, but bottom line is, and you pointed this out, if it's got to be unanimous at the WTO, the fact that Germany already came out and said, no, we're not for it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's over. So he gets the positive press of Joe Biden's on the right side of this, and then whoever, they may have had phone calls beforehand. I'm going to be the baby face. You're going to be the heel. Now let's play this game.
Yeah.
Right? But all of them need to agree. And I do want to say, this is the final thing I'll say about this, but it's super important. To not lift the patent protections is fucking genocidal.
Truly.
We know this will save hundreds of thousands or millions of lives.
Yep.
And if you say, I'm against it. Why are you against it? Hey, it's the way the law works. The way the law works is to protect the profit margins of fucking Pfizer. I don't give a fuck. I don't even think Pfizer should exist. Nationalize that shit. What do they bring to the table? Nothing. They're just a middleman that price gouges you for medicine that your tax money created.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why are they in the middle to get a cut? What are they, a fucking mafia? And the answer is yes. They're a fucking mafia. And the mafia bought the government.
In the healthcare space.
That's right. The mafia bought the government. It's not just the U.S. government. It's governments all around the world. And now you're seeing the way it works. But guess what? We have the benefit of clear thinking when we look at this. And the fact of the matter is every single cretin who's not in support of lifting these patent protections, every single one of them will go down in history as a fucking monster who's okay with genocide. You have basically the cure for a pandemic that's raging across the world, and your take is, not sure I want to share that with everybody.
Right.
Well, fuck right off. And I hope history judges them harshly.
And let's say they're right. It's complicated to get it up and running, et cetera, et cetera. That's the reason you should have done this from day one of your administration, number one. And number two, like, okay, well, let's get on it. Let's get moving. There are countries around the world, over 100 at last count, that have not administered their first dose